Hello, everybody. Welcome to Spirit Coffee Talk. Myself and Ginette and Elyse meet every Friday for coffee and we talk spirit. So welcome if you're new. We're happy to have you. And if you're returning, welcome back. So this week we were chatting beforehand a little bit about what we do as intuitives, or in general, when we are used to communicating with spirit, when spirit has come through with intuitive knowings or guidance, and we kind of get into the rhythm of communicating with spirit, and then all of a sudden it goes kind of like, and you don't get a lot back. And kind of like how to deal with that and how to continue with faith and continue with your practices, but understand that spirit communication comes with ebbs and flows. It's not always the same. Sometimes it's intense, but sometimes it's quiet. And the quiet times can be difficult as well. So welcome. And what do you ladies think?
I think this is such a great topic because it's something I've been noticing in a lot of different conversations with people. And it's kind of a consistent theme too, but I also notice it coming up a lot more now that more and more people are awakening to connecting with their spirit guides in various ways. And I find a very consistent pattern in spirit communication is, and this is, I'm really trying to generalize it here, but the templated idea that I see playing out is somebody will open up to the concept of spirit. Spirit will come in a ton to say, yes, we're here, we're communicating. Look at this, look at these numbers, look at this dream. And the person's like, whoa, okay, I believe it. And then spirit gets quiet and the person's like, where are you? And then they start to think, am I making this up? Did I just make all of that up? Was it all a lie? What happened? This is garbage. And then they turn to like anger. Then they're like, fine, I quit. And I say this because I've been there, right? I literally have said, fine, I quit a couple times. And then there's an anger, and then there's a surrender of like, okay. And then you carry on with life, and then spirit comes back again. And sometimes that is a really short cycle. Sometimes it's a longer cycle, and it happens periodically. And the whole main point is that the spirit world wants to communicate with us, but they don't want us to be dependent on them. In many ways, they don't want to be seen as gods. They want to be seen as equal partners, that our voice and our thoughts are equal to what they might share. And so anytime we start to get a little codependent on them, they will often pull back for us to come back to thinking, what do I think first? And once we finally surrender into that, what I think first, they'll tend to come back. But that journey in it is very challenging for the human mind, because the human mind loves consistency and loves like, what is that? When you can fall into like a knowing routine, basically, right? Like our brains love that. And so it's a very challenging thing, but it's so normal. And so that's why I think it's so great that we maybe share, like, what do we do in those moments when spirit starts to turn it off? Like, what is your key to surrender? How do you get there? What is your journey in it?
I think we're done. We can end there. That was good.
We're done. Okay.
I feel like that was just so well said. Yeah.
And mic drop. Not even mic drop, just turned off.
Yeah.
Okay, well then maybe I'll start a little bit. So I find what I've started to notice is whenever I find I'm going to spirit like several times a day, and I start to catch myself being like, what do I do now? What do I do now? And I'm starting to want to like hold their hand step by step, is when I can start to tell they're going to pull back. And I still will often resist it at first. Like my natural tendency will be like, where are you? Why aren't you here? Why aren't you answering these questions? Why can I tune into a reading, but then when I ask you a question, it's crickets, right? But I find the more that that's happened, I've been able to shorten it and recognize that what they're asking is the surrender. So at that point, I will try and shift my focus on what can I do to bring comfort for me, which is something I've learned from you a lot, Elyse, is like, how can I bring myself comfort in this moment? Because I'm spending so much time reaching outward. I need to actually, like, what can I do for me in this moment? So I find one of my first things to try and recalibrate when spirit is quiet is like, get back to mundane tasks in my daily life that bring me comfort. And sometimes that's cooking. Like I always say to my kids, I'm like, what do we do when we're having a bad day and too much in our head? We make soup, right? Like we joke about it, but truly, like I just try and do something where it's very mundane 3D that's going to bring nourishment to me or everybody. And that shifts my frequency. And I find that's a really key piece in the beginning to trying to find that surrender. Yeah.
I just made a video about this on Thoughtful Thursday.
Did you?
Yeah, I just posted it. Yeah.
And it's so much in the collective.
Yeah. Because it was like Spirit came in and was like, you need to post this. You need to talk to people about this, because it was coming back to the mundane tasks of like humanness. Right. And as soon as you say coming back to like ground in your humanness, it's not necessarily like go back into the frequency of the 3D. When we talk about the 3D, 5D kind of shift, is you can be very grounded and in your body and day-to-day tasks within the 5th dimensional frequency. So it's like, that's being really grateful for what's around you, being engaged, actively engaged in the here and the now. So that's like being present in conversations, listening and responding authentically, right? Being open to new things, having that open mind, engaging in like, yes, thought-provoking things, but also really fun, silly things too, and not taking things too seriously. And coming back to your body, you know, like really like in appreciation for what your body is doing, because so much, when I find so much of the work that I do sends me into the spirit world, right? And I love that. I mean, I love that. So when I'm having that like quiet time and I'm like, well, what do I do? Coming into appreciation of my humanness. So that's like enjoying my senses and like feeling my body and being grateful for what my body is here to do, and my relationships and the stuff that that humanness of day to day, in appreciation and gratitude, right? Because then it kind of changes the thing, and then all of a sudden it like balances that like 5th dimensional communication in the spirit world with the 3rd dimension human stuff. It, by doing that, it equalizes or balances the frequencies out, so it's not such a big change.
Absolutely.
And I feel like, especially when you're starting out in your intuitive connection, but then also I find it, you know, all these years later, when there are these like really incredible, crazy spirit moments that I'm like, I want more. And I like, you kind of go up, 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 up. And it's remembering like, you have to keep your feet on the ground. I remember early on being like, I don't want to ground. I want to like have my head in the friggin' clouds. And that actually had the opposite effect, because it was like, you are a human, put your feet on the humanness and like put your feet in your humanness and on the earth and like ground yourself back down. So it is an important, to be more connected is to also be grounded and facilitate that. You might think it makes has the opposite effect, but it doesn't. It facilitates a deeper connection, because it's like your frequency can handle it.
Yes.
Totally.
I love
And
that.
you're so right about that. Like every time we expand into something more like greater learning, knowledge, communication, we have to balance it, because there needs to
Balance
be
it
an
out.
adjustment. Like our bodies, our mind have to adjust to the new stuff that's come in.
Yes.
And we have to like digest it for a bit, even though we want more. It's like sugar, like you need to let some sugar burn off in your body before you take in more.
Yes.
Otherwise, it's going to make you sick. And we all know too much energy up there has made us all sick and burnt at different times.
And that's why when I made the video, it was after all those like crazy solar storms, right? And the influx, like the massive influx of energy that has been 2024, really, right? In the first 2 months. And so then all of a sudden Spirit was like, hey, balance it out now. Okay, because everybody just got an influx of this energy, whether you're conscious of it or not, or whether you're like, what the heck was that? If you're like, what the heck was that? Then, you know, like, it's like the energies are funky. I don't know why, but I can feel it. Something must be going on, you know? So that's like an influx of energy. And then to balance it out, to really equalize that, so that it doesn't have to be such polarities. It doesn't have to be like, you don't feel like you have to go back into the darkness or the shadow after the light. Like it doesn't have to be so polar, but to be able to equalize it and balance it out. It's like coming into your body, coming into the earth frequencies, appreciation for earth, Mother Earth, and all her glory, not just the beautiful green mountainous, beautiful earth, the frozen white coldness too.
You know, I think too, that's a good awareness to have, is to know that after some big series of communications or like sacred trips like we've done before, there is going to be that down period, that
Yes.
recalibration, that like it allows us to move through the wonky and integrate. And I think if you kind of expect it, it's not going to hit you as hard, because I know we've all been hit over the head with that several times where we're like, what's going on? But it's that balancing act. It's the teeter-totter. It's like coming back into balance. So
and the more you try and control and restrict that balancing act, that equilibrium that they're trying to find, the more you cut yourself off, right? Like when we talk about intuitive, it's flowing, it's open, it's kind of that feminine energy. And the more like and grippy you get about it, the more you're teetering away from that openness, that expansiveness, which further facilitates it. There's one piece that keeps coming. I haven't been there. When we were talking before we started recording, it's like, what do we do? I have a temper tantrum. I get pissed off. But that actually brings me to a point that they've been kind of bringing back up in my mind as we've been talking around. We did a video a while back, I can't remember exactly when it was, about within the last year or 6 months, of that are all guides, do they all have the full knowing of what we need, right? Like, do all guides always know what we need all the time, whether that's loved ones or, you know, your higher self or, you know, your guides, whatever. And what's coming up for me too is that sometimes, like, and I know we've had this conversation, that I think sometimes spirit forgets what it's like to be human, especially when we are living on the 3D experience that we are living, where like it's intense, and people, like over the last 4 or 5 years, people are burnt out. There's been so much trauma. There's been so much stress. Like we're really going through it individually and collectively. And it's a lot for our human systems. And I think sometimes, you know, those ebbs and flows will happen in times when we're like, F this, I need you to show up. I need you to show me. I get you're trying to teach me a lesson and like, don't be dependent and da. But I need help. And I think that it's, you know, it's a discernment and getting to know your own process around, am I gripping onto this because I am not wanting to move through it in my human experience, and I'm asking spirit, like you were saying, Ginette, 7-8 times a day, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Versus coming back to ourselves and our own process and knowing and things. Or is it like, I need a friggin' life raft. I need you to help me. And I had one of those moments not long ago where I was like, enough. I am tired. And a lot of it was like external circumstances that weren't necessarily, you know, in my control or whatever, but they were so deeply influencing my ability to move through the lessons that I was trying to move through, that I'm like, I need you guys to help me out here, because I'm a little bit tired of this. And I'm gonna throw in the towel for a bit. I'm gonna have to put a pause on my own healing, because I need help, or I need to stop. Like that's where I'm at. I'm at 0% right now. And so I think starting to know and discern, like when you have to be really direct with your ask for help, and they do show up in those moments, and they can understand the frequency of your ask when it's like, I need a friggin' life raft here, versus help me, I don't know what to do. And it's kind of like a churny experience. And so while we're saying surrender into, sometimes there is a block, I think there are times where you have to be like, I need you, I need help, I need support, just as you would call a friend, just as you would call your coach or therapist or your parent or your loved one or somebody to support you. It is that same sort of thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
it's so interesting. I know one of the most challenging times for me, and I did write about it in my book, so I'll just keep it really short, but was a time when I sat for 3 months and got absolutely nothing. Like I could still tune in for other people, but spirit would give me nothing, zip, for 3 months. And so for the first month, say, I was angry. I would be like, where are you? where are you? Like angry, right? And the second month I was kind of like begrudgingly showing up, like, fine, right? Like, fine, I'll sit here. Fine, I'll tune in again, but I'm here, just so you know. And then the third month, I just was like, I'm here. And it was like this like tampering of my egoic energy in it. And again, like, not that the ego is wrong, it's trying to keep you safe and it'll come in and battle for you. But like, and it wasn't until I fully sat in that like surrendered energy that then all of a sudden one day they came back with a whole ton. And they're like, we needed you to learn how to move through your own energy because you actually block yourself. And I was like, oh, right. Like that was one of the first really big lessons in this journey. And it's been repeated, but each time I've been able to learn something more. And so that's why I think it's so important to recognize what is your process that gets you back into that surrendered state. So you can at any time try and repeat it with various options, of course, but like, how can you repeat that process backwards to that surrendered state? Because once you know it, it's easier to go do it. And you can almost find safety in like, okay, this is where I need to, you know, do this play in my handbook of spirit communication because I've gotten too far in whatever. Yeah, it's really valuable.
Yeah.
Interesting. Something to be said.
Yeah, I feel like what you just said is a piece that I wasn't articulating, in that I think the ask of like, I need the life raft is the surrender moment.
Yes.
It might
Yeah,
feel
it can be for
differently,
sure.
but that totally resonates.
Yeah, no, definitely. Definitely. And I think this is something that's really key to remember right now too, is that like we're in a time of so much awakening, like so much awakening is happening for everyone on all levels, like brand new beginning to advanced. And in that, every time we reach a new phase, we want to know more. And every time we're often going to be paused to calibrate before we can know more. And it is almost always in our highest good. And honestly, I think it is always in our highest good. But again, like you said, Elyse, I think sometimes they do forget what it's like to be human. And so we can voice that. We're like, we are in our sovereign right able to voice that. And sometimes even voicing that is, you feel it, like you stood up for yourself, like you were saying, right? Like, and that allows you to surrender. So,
and sometimes that is the lesson.
Well, yeah, true. Like that's so true.
Asking for help.
Yeah, so true. So anyways, I just think that's such an important thing for people to recognize, that they're not alone in those moments and spirit is not ignoring you and you're not bad at connecting or anything like that, that I hear a lot of people say, right? Like, I just can't do this, or they don't like me, or they're working against me, or whatever. There's definitely a process to it. So,
and they're just saying sometimes the act of surrender is actually getting out of the cerebral aspect, because you're not going to think your way towards spirit. So it's a very common thing in getting used to the communication too, to get in our heads and to think it through. And sometimes that's like, okay, come back into your body, right? Like move it, come back, do like maybe a meditation that clears the thoughts and allows you to just surrender to what is in like space. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, any other last minute thoughts? No,
that's good.
All right. Practice your surrender, everyone. It is a valuable resource of your own, of finding that pathway or what that looks like. So, okay. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We hope this is helpful and we will be back again next week.
Yay.